So if your cost per book call is way too high and therefore your return on ad spend suffers and you're not able to generate, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times your money back on your Facebook advertisements, then here are a couple strategies that we've used to recently help a client, go from somewhere $800, $900 cost per book call to more in the 300 range. Sub 300 even. Just a couple strategies that we normally always deploy if the cost per book call is already too high. This client is spending a ton of money on Facebook ads, right? So over $100,000 a month. And this is really also working at scale. So if you have a too high cost per book call, listen to this. So first of all, I have to start by saying you have to have a great offer. If you don't have a great offer, a bad value proposition if you want so, and I see way too much of this, like a lot of you just promise, very generic things. Hey, we're gonna set up a plan. Hey, we're gonna make it nice for you. Hey, we're gonna edit your content or whatever, right? Like things that don't really matter to people, especially in the business sense, especially to rich people. Like you're not gonna succeed, right? There's just no interest in your offer, right? Like for example, the client that we recently worked with, he does, he saves people $500,000 in taxes and he only charges about $10,000 for that, even below that. So that's a great value proposition. That's basically, I'm gonna make you 50 times your money over the next 10 years, right? Like for example, my offer is also, I'm gonna, 5x, 6x your money, 10x your money with Facebook ads, right? So it's like the value proposition here is very good. And if you don't have a specific tangible outcome, I would really challenge you to rethink your whole marketing strategy, your whole business strategy, because there's just no way you're going to succeed with that in today's marketplace, right? Like people want an actual result, right? Whether that's losing weight, whether that's, making money, whether that's, like measurable happiness or, quality of life or whatever, right? Like just like very generic terms, generic offers are just not going to succeed. And your cost per book calls are always going to be high. And you're not going to make a lot of money with this. But second step would be to actually look at the whole system in its completeness, right? So you want to have a view from above, right? Because sometimes you are optimizing for the wrong thing, right? Like that's the first part. Like don't just optimize for the sake of optimizing. Actually look at the data and decide which metric you want to optimize for first, right? So you want to look at the ads, you want to look at the landing page, at the opt-in rate, at the booking rate, and at the close rate, right? Like sometimes maybe you're going to just have a high cost per book call, but your close rate is so low that you're not making money on that end, right? So you want to actually optimize the sales process, the close rate. Then maybe you have struggled with the funnel, with the landing page. This is where you want to optimize, or the ads, right? So let's start with the ads first. What can you do? So I always encourage, and I made a video about this, and I'm going to link it below and above and everywhere, about how to do direct response ads, right? I do think you have to have a very simple, very offer-based structure on direct response ads. That's going to be the base of your advertisement. And then you can start doing some more complex stuff. Way too many people just run, whatever ads to whatever page. You want to have an offer, you want to have a, call to action to that offer, and basically try to call out your audience and direct them to it, right? So you want to start with a direct response ad and then test from there. And then you also want to optimize for the right results, right? Like if you want people actually to schedule from your Facebook ad, you have to actually also select the event schedule, right? Like if you select lead, then you're going to get more leads, then you're going to get schedules, right? So Facebook is very good at actually finding the people that you want to find. So always optimize for the right event. And then once you maxed out this one event, you go down the chain, right? So first you go for scheduling, then for filling out application, then you go for lead, right? And then you go down the chain of events, right? So don't optimize for leads if you want actually scheduled appointments. Then I also encourage people always to use retargeting, right? I do think once people have seen a couple of your ads, it's always good to retarget those people. It's a smaller audience, so it might not be the best, metric. It depends a bit on how much you spend and how the audience is set up. But you definitely want to retarget people who opted in but didn't schedule. That's the one audience I would really, really recommend retargeting. And then also, page visitors, people who are leads, whatever, right? Like the warmer type of audience. You can also, if you have a big following, retarget your actual warm audience, people who interacted with your page. That's also a very good way of getting very cheap and very high quality calls, but that requires, of course, an audience. So use retargeting strategically. I would always use it for people who actually have, opted in but didn't schedule, right? Because those are the people who just need a little bit of pushing over the edge. You want to use email and you want to use Facebook retargeting here. And then you will see, test if the other audiences are worth it. Now let's talk about the page. So on the page, you always have to keep in mind everything that you put in front of people is friction, right? Like if you have an opt-in before you have a schedule, that's a friction point, right? You can also just have people schedule immediately. You can have an opt-in, application, and schedule, right? That's gonna add way more friction than if you just have application and schedule, or if you just have schedule, right? You have to find the right balance between enough hoops so that the people are qualified. And I don't think you have to have too many hoops. You just have to ask the right questions with conditional logic in the application funnel. But you have to find a balance here, right? Like what's actually, you can get very cheap people, but they are lower quality, but you want to have the right amount of quality and the right amount of application. So what we normally recommend is have some type of application funnel, right? Where that's a survey, conditional logic, use Typeform, use Go High Level. And you ask the right questions there, right? Like most of the time, I think the biggest question that is not being asked is about the actual investment, right? Are you actually able to invest, X amount of dollars for a product? So an application funnel and then directly the calendar after this. So that's normally what has worked best. I don't think it's very valuable to have an opt-in funnel first. Sometimes some funnels require this, or sometimes you're going to work with a system that is already in place like this, where you then have to tweak things on that end, right? Where you have to actually get the opt-in metrics up. But if you can avoid it, just use an application funnel and just use the scheduling tool, right? So whether that's a Calendly or another calendar, survey plus application, that's going to be the best structure. And then if you're using a VSL or webinar or something that people can watch, which I do think is very valuable, but I think 99% of VSLs are just very boring, are just very generic, and are just very selfish. I worked with people in the past who have an hour-long webinar and are forcing people to watch that hour-long webinar, right? And while that gets some decent results sometimes, not always, but sometimes, it's like, if people are interested, sometimes they just don't want to watch an hour of your content, right? Like if it's somebody who has money, who is already educated on a topic, you want to have an opportunity, have a condition for them to actually move through the funnel faster, right? So I do think it's valuable to have a VSL. I would keep it under 10 minutes. I would make it super valuable for the customer, right? Like what's in it for them. Talk about your offer, talk about your pricing, talk about what makes you different, talks about what makes you better, and then just leave it at that. Don't make it an hour long, don't make it 30 minutes, don't make it boring. And sometimes, it might even be better to not have a VSL at all, right? Like if you can't deliver anything on camera, and if you're very bad, you just probably want to move them right through the sales process then, and then sell them on the call if you can't deliver on that. Just a quick note on the survey, right? So on the application funnel, I think it's good to escalate questions slowly, right? So first of all, ask things like age, ask things like, hey, slow questions, and then ask for the, hey, what's your monthly revenue, right? Like how much money do you make, right? Because like people don't want to disclose immediately how much money they make. They want to actually, get ramped up slowly, in my opinion, right, in my experience. And then of course, right, like have two different types of landing pages for the application, because if somebody's unqualified, you don't want to have them clogging up the pipeline of your best closer. If somebody's qualified, you want to move them towards your best salesperson immediately. If someone is unqualified, you might not give him a call at all. You might get him to the appointment setter, or you might get him towards, just, waiting for a call back or an email funnel or whatever, right? Like if somebody doesn't want to do the investment, if somebody isn't the right prospect, there's no point in trying to sell them on the sales call. Yeah, so these are two things you can do on the front end to really increase the throughput, decrease the cost per book call. Another tip that's not going to necessarily decrease the cost per book call, but is going to increase the quality of people walking through, is adding an FAQ section on your landing page, right? So actually feeding the people some questions. You can also do this by email, but I like to do it on the landing page itself, so that you have somebody, because like the buyers, right? Like the people who are interested are going to read this, right? Like we've recently massively increased the opt-in and the scheduling rate on another funnel, where we just put in the FAQ section, because people who are interested are going to consume everything that you send them. And people who are not interested or who are complainers are going to complain about everything, right? So you have to block out the noise, and you actually have to listen to the people who are valuable. Yeah, so if you enjoyed this video and if you want more like this, please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you need help scaling your company with creative Facebook advertising and funnel management, then please make sure to click the link below and schedule a free 20-minute call with our team.